What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Yard Podcast. I'm your host, Randy,
And I'm your host, Konu.
and we've got a lot to get into. It's our fourth episode. We're very excited that we've made it a month. We were talking about this
One
earlier,
month. Woo!
so we're both excited about that. Really quickly, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Randy_Radcliffe.
And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Michael Konu, MyKalKonu.
And you can also, of course, find Dodger Yard on basically any platform under just Dodger Yard, or on Facebook, Dodger Yard 2019. Got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that good stuff. So we're going to jump into this because we have way too much to talk about. Not much Dodger news today, but we have one little thing on that we'll talk about. But a lot of this is going to be about the proposal going on. So I figured most people are going to care about this because those articles about the proposals and everything were so damn long. Like, having to read through that stuff sucked. I don't know if you read all of Poisson's, but that was not fun. So let's get into it because I got a lot to tell you guys. So earlier today, the MLB and MLB Players Association had their meeting. It ended this afternoon. However, MLB did not make any type of economic proposal to the players. So that's not even, they haven't even gotten into money talks yet. Of course, discussions are expected to be continued, but this is kind of the breakdown from Jeff Poisson's article and everything that we're expecting to see and I guess not see in this proposal and what the players can look forward to. So we'll get going to it. The proposal would include a 50%, so 50-50 split of revenue from the 2020 season. It's about 82 game schedule, would start in mid-June, would be spring training, then followed by regular season very early in July. Sounds like July 4th is something they want to aim for because, baseball, America, it's the two connect for a lot of people. So they want to make that a big old thing. They want to have a 14-team postseason instead of 10. Games will be played at home stadiums in the states and cities that they're allowed. There'd be a universal DH. Games would only be against your divisional and regional teams. So all the West would play the West. Central would all play Central. And all East would play each other. We would play even the AL West teams. So that part. And then it keeps going. The expanded rosters would go up from about 26 to 30 players. They would have a 20-man taxi squad of minor leaguers and prospects. We'll get into that in a little bit. No fans in the stadium to begin the season. So that's basically everything that we're expected to see in the proposal. What they've talked about so far, we don't really know. It seems like the only thing they've talked about is health and being able to get tests. So a little bit of a breakdown on what could cause problems is the money. That's going to be the biggest thing. So I'm going to kind of read a little bit from Poisson's article on stuff that you need to pay attention to if you care about this stuff, because it might affect whether or not we have a season. So the players have already said splitting the revenue is a non-starter for them. So basically, teams have local revenue and they have national revenue. The local revenue is where they make their sales from fans coming in, concessions, TV deals with local stations, and then you have national revenue, which is your TV contracts with Fox and ESPN and any type of MLB in media. So MLB network games, anything like that, postseason games, that's all national revenue. And there's some teams like the Dodgers who have $250 million a year in revenue. And then you have teams like the Marlins who are $20 million in local revenue from their TV contracts. So you can see how some teams, the owners, could be a little bit worrisome. They are worried about having to pay their players for the entire season. They believe that they will actually lose more money by paying prorated salaries instead of just playing with no season. So in the owners' minds, which I don't know math, so I can't tell you really yes or no because MLB's got lots of different incomes. Owners are saying that if we don't have a season in 2020, their money situation will be better off than if the players play 82 games and they pay their prorate salaries, because that's going to end up costing them more. So that's where it gets a little interesting, because if there is no season, what happens there? This is on the player side of things, so this would affect the players. In March, they agreed they signed an agreement with the owners that if the season were to be canceled, they would have a lump sum of 170 million. So you're basically splitting that 170 million across all the players in the league, which is that's insane. Think about players that live paycheck to paycheck or making the minimum salary. Might be a little difficult. And I know people will say, what do you mean players live paycheck to paycheck? But I'm just telling you what Passan's article said, because I guarantee you some of those young players who are playing on minimums, you would be surprised. But another issue they're worried about is the free agent market heading into 2021 would crash due to lack of incomes for teams. That could cause a big problem between owners and players. Owners aren't going to want to pay their players heading into the 2021 season, which could cause a big issue with the CBA down the line. The MLB Players Association might have to dip into their emergency savings to help pay players when that money is potentially being saved for, let's say, like a work stoppage when the new CBA comes into play after the 2021 season. So that gets a little iffy for players. There's kind of a lot on the line. As for owners, though, what's interesting, like the union, some of the players, Tony Clark, call BS on what some of the owners have to say about them losing money. But basically, if there is no season, the owners' revenue shrinks to about nothing. They expect mass firings and furloughs would take place. Bankruptcies are very possible and probably going to happen to a couple teams and would force the owners to sell, or MLB would have to bail those teams out. The franchise values would just completely plummet, and it would take them years to get out of that financial hole because of how much money they lost in the 2020 season. So my opinion, again, we're not that important here, but players and the owners need to figure out a way to make it happen, because right now there's no other sports besides UFC going on, and UFC is not like every other sport where you've got a set like every single day, every other day, or every weekend. It's different. Baseball has a chance to come out if the players are safe. That's where I sit. Players have to be safe, and they all have to kind of agree with everything before they go into this. I'm not forcing anyone to do anything they don't want to, but think of how good it would be for baseball. You would be one of the only sports on TV right now. People are like just dying for anything. The Last Dance is pulling in record numbers, which it probably would have either way. But when you realize like people don't have sports, there isn't much live TV going on, more and more people are easily watching that instead of waiting and watching it later. So it could be really big for the league. And of course, there's the issue of, do you really, in the middle of a pandemic, want to have billionaires and millionaires fighting over money? That could get really messy. And I don't think the billionaires really care how they look. There's a lot less of them, and they don't do anything with fans. They don't have to interact with us. The players, they're the ones that unfortunately this may fall back and look a little bit worse on, even though they're the ones who have to make the sacrifices and go out there and play every day. So, I mean, to me, they're in the right here. They deserve the money. They're helping without the players, you have nothing. Any billionaire can come up. We really don't need these we need their money. But when it comes to the sport in general, we need these players a lot more than we need the owners. They're the ones sacrificing themselves, and it's that part. That's where I have a hard time with it. I don't want to see anything happen. You have their family members, coaches, managers, all types of stuff, the staff. And not to mention, you have players who we don't know if they all want to play. There's a chance some may want to play, some don't want to play. So I don't know how that works out. If some teams decide you can't force them to do anything. What if you have a player, just for example, this won't happen. He already said he's going to play, but like Gavin Lux, what if Gavin Lux came out and said no, I'm not playing? Do the Dodgers how does that work? Do they just say, okay, we lose him for the season? Does he not get his service time? Even though, I wonder how all of that goes. They have about 2.5 weeks to kind of finish stuff up if they want to stay on their spring training 2.0 around June. So hopefully they can kind of figure that out very soon, because if they want to squeeze this 82 game schedule in and finish up playoffs, that's going to have to be the way to go. They want to add in more playoff games than usual, which would make them more money, because playoff games obviously get a lot more revenue from national television. So we'll have to see what happens there. Arizona today did say that they will allow Major League Sports to start back up May 15th. California, on the other hand, LA, on the other hand, just said that they will be extending their stay-at-home order until at least the end of July. So it becomes an interesting kind of factor. Would the Dodgers even be able to play at Dodger Stadium? If not, Arizona does seem open. They have their facility there, and maybe they just play all their home games at Camelback. Who knows? It's a lot to take in. I would suggest reading the article. You can also just reach out to us if you have any questions, because I've spent a very long time reading over this and taking notes. So we'll see what happens there. But one thing that seemed interesting to me about all of this was the 30-man player roster, which we touched on a little bit how this could benefit the Dodgers, but also just a 20-man taxi squad of minor leaguers and prospects. So you're thinking about adding 4 more roster spots in general, which helps the Dodgers huge because you have guys like May, Gonsolin, Rios, Beatty, all those guys fighting for the 26-man spot. So now they're all locked in. And on top of that, you're telling me we're going to get to add 20 more prospects and players to help us out, that they might need the taxi squad. I'm all for that. I know Konu, he's a big minor league guy, knows much more about it than I do.
Yeah.
So if that's what ends up happening, who do you think should end up on a couple names that should end up on that 20-man taxi squad that we could end up seeing this year?
Okay, so you brought up Rios, and I wasn't sure if he would make the original 30-man roster, but he would 100% be on the taxi squad because he provides the best power in the system. And when he makes contact, he really barrels the ball up well. Unfortunately for him, it's hard to find a spot for him to play because he's not good defensively anywhere. He plays like 3 spots, but he's not good there. So like if there was a universal DH like they're talking about, then that would definitely be a spot for him, as well as somebody like Zach McKinstry, who we saw in spring training. Very good hitter, provides a little bit of power. He can play first. He can play second, short, and third. So he'd kind of fill that Chris Taylor and Kike Hernandez role. We could also see someone like Cody Thomas and DJ Peters. They're outfielders, big outfielders with big power, but they also have a lot of swing and miss. So that's a little bit of an issue. Thomas profiles better in right field, and DJ Peters is super athletic, so he can play center field if need be. We're also talking about someone like Josiah Gray, who's a former shortstop, so he's really just getting into his groove pitching. He might not be necessarily ready to pitch in the big leagues, but he was expected by everybody, including Dave Roberts, to make his debut sometime this year. So putting him on the taxi squad to get some work in makes a lot of sense. And yeah, so also Dennis Santana. Forgot about this. Dennis Santana had a great spring. He was once a starter, but he's really found his niche coming out of the bullpen, and he's got future closer stuff. So those are some of the players I'd be keeping an eye on as players who can contribute to the Dodgers this year.
I agree. I'm good with those names.
So let's get into some Dodger-related news. Justin Turner did an interview with LA Times, and he was talking about how unsettling the feeling is not being able to play for the Dodgers again. So here's his quote. It's definitely something that I've thought about a few times and don't want. Obviously, there's a possibility there's no season and my Dodger career could have ended last year in the playoffs, which would be tough. It would be sad to think about. And Turner also said that he and the Dodgers have not discussed a contract extension because their focus is on figuring out how to play in 2020. So with all that, so there was talk about a universal DH this year, and when was it supposed to happen?
It
for 2021, 2022?
2022, because that would be the new CBA.
Okay, so if there is a universal DH soon, then I think Turner and the Dodgers will come to some kind of agreement because even if his defense is declining, he's still very productive with the bat. So they are very likely to bring him back. And him being a DH would keep him fresh throughout the season. And of course, if he needed to play third, he can still do that in a pinch.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I agree. It would be a bummer to lose him. I would be very sad. He's huge for the community. But really, that's kind of the only Dodger news we have this week. Everything is so focused on the proposal and everything going on. We touched on the proposal first because I feel like that's what most people want to know what's going on. But there are, of course, some negatives to the season happening in 2020, and I'm not here to tell you about all of them. I'm just here to kind of bring some things into perspective from an article that I read one of Ken Rosenthal's articles in The Athletic, and it was something I think a lot of us aren't really thinking about, but it's players. So he has an entire article that's out. If you have The Athletic, you should read it. It's about the players who are at higher risk if they play in 2020. You've got, I mean, there's even some Dodgers, but you've got David Dahl from the Rockies. He had his spleen removed. You got a couple guys in the league with type 1 diabetes, Scott Alexander being one. Then you have to think about guys like Carlos Carrasco. He was diagnosed with leukemia last season, and prior to that, he had non-invasive heart procedure in 2014. Same thing, heart thing. Think about Jansen. You've got 2 heart procedures, with most recent in 2018. John Lester and Anthony Rizzo from the Cubs, they've both battled cancer a year ago. And I'm sure there's tons of players out there and coaching staff, trainers that haven't even said anything to the public, which they don't have to. That's their medical. We don't need to know about it. But it's something that you don't think about, and you don't think about family. Like Sean Doolittle's wife has been kind of talking about this stuff a lot on Twitter, and her name is, I'm going to try to pronounce this right. It's Ariane. Hopefully I said that right. But she's Sean Doolittle's wife, pitcher for the Nationals. They're great. Love both of them on Twitter. But she has a history of respiratory issues, so she's a little bit worried about that. And if Sean were to bring something home, give it to her, it could put her in a ton of danger that I think most of us don't think about, because all we think about is playing. I mean, Dave Roberts had Hodgkin's lymphoma back in 2010. There's so many things that fans don't know about when it comes to player health, family health, and all of that stuff really, really matters. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but I'm going to keep sticking to the players need to be safe. They need to be tested as much as possible. They need to have the resources to take care of players, and there needs to be something in place that if one player gets sick, what happens to the rest of the team? So hopefully we'll hear more about that as time goes on, but that's kind of really it when it comes to the proposal. We will talk about that more as soon as we have more information. But why don't you take over the next couple subjects?
Okay, so in other MLB news, according to Buster Only, at least one MLB ownership group has instructed their team to cut payroll, and many baseball execs expect other teams to follow suit. Now, I think this is like just another example of billionaire owners just kind of being cheap. Now, I did see someone on Twitter by the name of Future Dodgers, so shout out to Future Dodgers. He brought up a good point, saying that this would be a good time for Dodgers ownership to take advantage and flex their financial muscle. Now, I hardly doubt they will do that because they've shown to be slightly cheap in the past. But like, if an expensive and productive player on a bad team, like say maybe Ian Desmond from the Rockies, gets released or something like that, then I think the Dodgers could pounce all over that because Ian Desmond is still productive.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you think about, which will actually be perfect for you to talk about because you know this way better than I do. But when it comes to flexing their wallets, that could actually be huge in the draft with the cut down back in rounds. So like I said, you're a minor league dude, so I'm going to let you talk about the draft because I rarely pay attention after like the first or second round. I know it's bad, but I'd rather not talk about it unless I know.
It's okay. So, look, the MLB draft will take place on June 10th. Now, the draft is usually 40 rounds, but in this unfortunate time, the MLB has trimmed it down to save some money. Now, this looks like a move that could save teams approximately $30 million. Now, there was an agreement on March 26th between the Players Association and the MLB that trims the draft down from 40 rounds to just 5. So, but teams will be able to allocate their draft money as they see fit. Undrafted players, unfortunately, will only get a max of $20,000, and the draft signing deadline is August 1st. So the MLB has been trying to cut down the minor leagues, as we all know, and to me, this is just another way to do that, all while saving some money. This is going to leave a lot of players without jobs. So, like, in a regular draft, there's over 1,200 players that get drafted, and 900 of those sign contracts. This year, that will plummet all the way down to only 160 players. Now, teams are allowed to sign as many players as they want, but again, it's only for a max of 20K. So, like in previous years, a player drafted after even the fifth round would get a bigger signing bonus of 20K. So, this could really push like high school players to go the college route instead. But now we have to think about the virus coming into play. So, like with the virus going around and colleges being closed for the time being, when will those kids get a chance to play? So many players' dreams are being affected by this. But if we look on the flip side, the teams could be getting players for like a really good bargain. Now, I've seen multiple reports out there. The biggest one came from Chris Cotillo, who's a Red Sox beat writer, and he said that teams in places with strong amateur bases, so like California, Georgia, Texas, and Florida, they have an advantage in the undrafted free agent market, as well as the legacy teams. So that means the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Cubs, and of course the Dodgers. So the Dodgers will come out double winners in this because they have a great amateur market and they're a legacy team. But this whole thing, it's great for the owners and it's great for the teams who are trying to cut down on the minor leagues, but it's really bad for the players and it's really bad for the small town teams who only have, or the small, yeah, for the small towns who only have like the minor leagues to look forward to.
It's also just terrible for the sport in general. I mean,
Yeah.
all those kids. So what'd you say? It starts at what? Because I think I messed up my rounds number when I first jumped into this. I might have said the wrong one because I feel like it keeps changing. It was what, 40, then cut to 10, and then finally cut to 5. Is that what
Five,
happened?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild. It's very unfortunate. It's sad because there's a lot of kids who probably were told, hey, you're probably a 6th round through 12th round guy, and they're gonna just miss their opportunity. Kids wait their entire life for this, so it's a really shitty situation all around. I just I don't know. There's so much going on that I feel like it just getting upset about stuff like this. It matters because it's about the sport. All of it matters even if you don't think it does. Like you said, the minor leaguers, it's almost like it's MLB's sneaky way of getting in there and finding a way to get rid of some of these minor league teams, because if you can only draft so many, you can only have so many teams. And then when you have the undrafted that you can sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. You covered it pretty well. I learned some stuff just from that. It's interesting. But unfortunately with the draft, it has nothing to do with the draft, but it's another thing for baseball that has changed and will be canceled or altered, and that is the 2021 World Baseball Classic. They announced that it's pretty much going to be canceled. They want to move it until 2023 or 2025, and I'm actually really, really bummed about this. I went to the World Baseball Classic in 2017. It was the first time I ever went to a baseball game alone, and it's when I fell in love with going to games alone because it was just so much fun. The support for the countries, even the other countries, it was so much fun to watch the other teams' fans come out and support them and the way that they celebrate baseball versus the way we do. And I think it was so good for the sport. It brought so many fans together. And we had, I forget what player tweeted it, but it might have been Yelich that had tweeted it, like Bellinger, Bueller, and getting all these top guys to play, which rarely ever happens in the World Baseball Classic because it's right before season starts. Players don't want to get hurt. And in my opinion, it should be viewed a much bigger deal than it is, but we just don't really do a good enough job of hyping it up. And we were going to have some top players in it next year. And I've also heard some conversation of like, how can we have a season in 2020, but they're already canceling the WBC, which is 8 months away, 8-9 months away. And I think the biggest issue with that is the WBC would not just take place in the US. It takes place in other countries. You have other players outside of MLB playing from other countries. We won't be able to keep MLB players safe the way the MLB wants to when they go to other countries. We don't know how the virus will be in other countries, and it's just too much of a risk. But it's just unfortunate. It's, like I said, it's terrible for the game, and I don't know. I'm bummed. There's a lot of, I feel bad complaining and bitching about stuff like this with so much going on, but at the same time, I'm also trying to just kind of deal with what's our outside world and then kind of view this stuff and take it with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, health is more important. But it's hard as a sports fan. It's rough. It sucks that it's going to be pushed back at least 3 years, if not 5. So we'll see what happens there. I think you were talking about going for the first year this time, weren't you?
Yeah, because I've never been, so I was a little bummed as well because I was thinking about traveling to one of the places to go catch a game.
Yeah. So it sucks. I think a lot more people would have been into it in 2021 than they were in 2017. So it's a bummer, but guess what? I'm very shocked right now. We have we sped through this episode. We're actually going to end up finishing this like in a few minutes, which would make this a lot shorter. So before we get to the next stuff, because we have so much time, I wanted to kind of see, since I did all the talking, I was curious as to kind of where you're at the proposal, not as to what we expect, but kind of, I guess you could say, where this might go and how you think it might turn out, whether there's going to be a season or not, and how bad it could get first.
Well, so the main thing, you said there was a non-starter with the 50-50 revenue split, right? So that's going to be a major problem. And if what you had said is true about the owners saying that they would save more money not having a season at all, I fear that there really may not be a season because, as we all know, the owners are greedy. Let's just call it what it is. They're greedy.
Yep.
They've always been greedy. They always will be greedy. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be on their side for whatever reason. They're billionaires. They worked hard for it. Yada, yada, yada. Players are really the moneymakers here. Where would this game be without the players? It would be nothing. We don't go to games to see the freaking owners. We go to see Cody Bellinger and Mookie Betts. We don't go to see Mark Walter. Who cares?
What? You're not trying to go to a game so Stan Kasten can insult you to your face and tell you that you don't know the baseball economics?
Stan Kasten really should just stop talking.
There comes a time and point where you're there for your money, not to speak to fans. I think that's where there's a huge, you can't have guys with that much money trying to talk to casual baseball fans. It just, it's not going to work because a lot of those guys don't understand what fans are kind of dealing with when it comes to that. So it's like, you tell us that we don't understand certain parts of baseball just because we want you to spend more money. I don't know. I'm totally going off because that whole comment from Kasten pissed me off, and that was what, like, was that
2
this
years
year?
ago.
2 years? Really? Holy.
It might have been like 2 years ago. Yeah.
I don't know. I can't. Time is so screwed up in quarantine, but I agree with you.
Not this past
Fan
Dodger
Fest.
meetup thing. I forgot Fan Fest, but the one before that.
Okay, so 2019.
Yeah. 18.
Okay. No, we had one in 2020.
You're right. 2019. Sorry.
Okay. No, you're good. I was just making sure I wasn't getting my dates messed up. But no, I think you're right. It could get very ugly very fast. I feel bad for the players that they even have to be put in this position. You're not going to find me feeling bad for billionaires. I just don't care, especially when they don't have to leave the house for their teams to play baseball.
Right.
I can't feel bad for them. So we'll see what happens. I would love to hear other fans' thoughts on what they think will happen. So hit us up at Dodger Yard Twitter. Let us know what you think. And I would like to have a discussion with some of you guys about that because I'm very curious as to what everyone else thinks. So yeah, the next thing, since we're talking about Twitter anyways, let's get into the fan questions. So this week we asked, if you could relive any moment in Dodger history, what moment would it be? And I have to make a confession. I think I kind of screwed up the wording on this one because a lot of people picked what you would expect, and we'll get into those. I don't want to spoil it just yet. But I was kind of looking for like literally any moment in Dodger history. Like my thought process was like possibly being in the room when Jackie Robinson signed his contract, or watching Vin Scully, sitting next to Vin Scully calling Sandy Koufax's perfect game. Like in my mind, like that, those are Dodger moments, but I get where I screwed that up. So I apologize, guys.
It was more like something you haven't seen, but you would have liked to see.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Yeah, when I meant relive, I guess I should have worded that better. I didn't. A lot of people name stuff that they did see on TV, whatever. So that was my bad. We'll work on the questions next time. But we did get some fun answers. So I already gave you mine. Give me yours and then the couple fans ones you picked out, and then I'll finish up with the fans.
Okay, so you want mine first?
I don't
So
care.
the
You can do the fans or yours.
okay, so the moment that I chose personally would have been June 4th, 1972, when the Dodgers retired the numbers of Roy Campanella, Sandy Koufax, and Jackie Robinson. I just think it would have been a great moment to witness like this very special occasion, and it's one of the last times we got to see Jackie because unfortunately he had passed away 4 months later.
Yeah, that would be badass. That's a good one. That's a good one.
And then for the fans, so the first one I saw came from at Sato ESQ, excuse me, and his moment was Roy Campanella night in 1959. That was the night that Pee Wee Reese had wheeled out Campy in front of a estimated 90,000 fans. So that's like absolutely insane to think about. I remember seeing a picture with all the lights in the stands. It was beautiful. And another one was from Trav Bleed Blue 35. His choice was Jackie Robinson's first game with the Brooklyn Dodgers. So just imagine being there for that like monumental occasion, being the first black player. And the final one that I picked came from Faith and Dog One, and their response was Game 7 of the 1955 World Series. It was the Dodgers' first in franchise history, and they beat the Yankees.
Yep. There you go. Those were good ones. I will admit I did have the first game, the Jackie Robinson one, but when you said you wanted it, I already had taken four, so I just deleted it off my list. So that's fine. I'm glad you got it. You liked that one.
Definitely.
But okay, so one of mine, I went with three of them. One was from Tony Alvarez. These are all from Twitter, and they wanted to see the first game at Dodger Stadium, which would be awesome. I loved that was kind of what I had meant for my question to be, was kind of things like that I guess most people wouldn't think. So I liked that one. And then ASU 82 Thompson had mentioned Koufax's perfect game against the Cubs. That would be incredible. That was a great choice as well. And then Rude Dog 777. This one was more a little bit on the personal side for them. They said, my first game with my dad, I would have asked more questions about his favorite games, players, how he became a Dodgers fan, and what baseball meant to him. And that one hits hard for me because I wish I would have done the same thing before my dad passed away 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago. So that one, I liked it a lot because as we grow up, we don't really think about these kind of things. I mean, I still have my ticket from my first game when I was 1, and I've looked up the box score, but I never had the chance to ask my dad why he became a Dodger fan when we had a family full of Angel fans. So I liked that one a lot because it went a totally different direction, but we did have plenty of honorable mentions. Ones that we saw quite a bit, which you brought up, was the 1955 World Series. Of course, the 1959 World Series. There was a ton of Kershaw's no-hitters, understandably. There were quite a few Fernando Manias. That would have been really cool. And then, obviously, the number one was Kurt Gibson's home run, which I'm sure every Dodger fan would love to have been there and lived through that moment, because that was, I'm not going to talk about it. It's been a long time. I'd like to see that too. I haven't seen one in my lifetime, so that would be great. But like I said, this episode is going to end a little bit shorter than usual, so that's all good. We don't mind. So I'm going to get into my favorite part at the very end, where we talk about kind of just the positive things going on, because everything is so negative right now. So a big one is Jorge Castillo said on Twitter the other day that Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Player Association announced they will distribute $500,000 to 10 nonprofits around the country, including International Medical Corps in Los Angeles. The organization will direct the money towards suicide prevention in Puerto Rico. So I thought that was really cool. We need, especially MLB because those owners have lots of money. Any type of donations going on. Loving that stuff. It's great to see. Another one, which a lot of you probably saw, is Jock Peterson teaming up with Nike to donate 5,000 pairs of shoes to LA hospitals for doctors, nurses, and other essential workers. So that's awesome of Jock and Nike. And then, of course, I talk about them every single week because they're constantly doing great things. But you have the Turners. Of course, they're still helping out the Dream Center. Turner actually talked about on Courtney Turner, his wife, talked about on her podcast how he actually went out to LA Dream Center to help hand out food. I believe it was last week. I want to say he was out there. And of course, he doesn't tell anyone he's going out there, but they joked how like a mask is not covering that orange beard. So as soon as people see like this dude walking towards them with an orange beard, they knew who it was. But he was passing out Yogurtland, and he said one of his favorite moments was seeing the kids get so excited that they were getting Yogurtland because it happened to be on like the day it was like 95 or whatever it was. So they are also serving, both Courtney and Justin will serve as honorary hosts for Children's Hospital of Los Angeles' 4th Walk and Play event. They've done it before. I think this is the second year they've done it. An event will be held virtually and live streamed on Facebook if you want to check that out. And all the money will be donated to the hospital. But that's all I've got today. So I don't know if you have anything else you want to say, anything else you want to touch on since we've run so short. All right. Well, then guess what? That was much shorter than one's past. That was about 35 minutes. Got to say, I'm impressed. That's kind of.
I thought this was going to go long.
So did I. I thought that proposal would go a lot longer, but it didn't need to. We said what we needed to say. So. That was good. This is probably what we'll try to aim for once we actually have baseball, whether that's this year or next year. So I'm glad we got that 35 minutes in. Good practice. But other than that, we appreciate you guys. If you can leave a review and rate the podcast and subscribe, especially if you're on Apple, those ratings and reviews have been huge. We love them. We appreciate them. We appreciate everyone who listens even once. So thank you guys for doing so. Hopefully things are sounding a little bit better on our end. Clearly we still got plenty of practice to do, but we'll get there.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Hopefully by the time we come on next Tuesday night, or you'll hear it on Wednesday, we've got some more information to talk about. But that's all I've got for you.
Don't forget to follow us at Dodger Yard on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And don't forget to follow my personal account on Instagram and Twitter. It's Michael Konu, MykalKonu.
Perfect. Got to get that plug in there always. I respect the hustle. All right, guys. Have a good rest of your day when you hear this, whenever that may be. And have a good rest of your week. And we'll catch you all next week.